Hello, hello. So today I have for you a weekly wrap up. This is for, let's see, the days of June 4th through June 10th. I'm filming this a little bit late. I do have 7 books to talk about. Most of them are from the Gaunt series, so there may be mild spoilers for the Gaunt series here, just because I have a lot of feelings. But that's that. So first up, the first book I finished up was Hunger, which is the second book in the Gaunt series. For those of you who do not know, the Gaunt series is a young adult book series following this group of kids in this town, Perdido Beach, California, when one day, suddenly, everybody over the age of 14, so everybody 15 and up, disappears, and their little town is kind of a dome is dropped on it. Basically, under the dome for kids is what this is. However, it's complicated by the fact that a bunch of kids are starting to develop powers, and a bunch of mutations are starting to occur out in the local wildlife. And another situation that is in this bubble, in addition to this town, all the public school kids, is a private school for troubled teenagers. So you can see where this series is my favorite series as a teenager, and as I've been rereading it, it remains my favorite. One thing that really shocked me this time was I was reading Hunger, and this book. So my favorite character in the series is Howard Bassem. He is a minor villain in the first book. His big talent is that he's real good at not getting murdered. He's real good at getting on the right side of things until book 5. But in this book, he becomes kind of more of a good guy, because he's this like scrawny little annoying mean kid who basically just hangs out near this really big guy that they call Orc. And in this book, Orc and Howard are kind of on the right side of things. But when I started reading this book took me 4 days to read. And I know it looks big, so that seems reasonable, but these books I can fly through. And the reason it took me so long to read is because this is the book where the human crew starts up. And so the human crew is basically, they're like a normal supremacist group. They start out really in later books. They start being like, you notice how everybody who doesn't have a power on that council is like not white. So they get real kind of heavy-handed with this. But in this one, the human crew starts up, and this starts up because this kid Hunter Leftfoot, who's my second favorite character, accidentally kills a kid because he is living in a house with a bunch of other. His age is really unspecific, because it starts out that him and all of his friends are all 7th graders. And then later in the same book, and Grant does sometimes mess up with like little details, normally not in the exact same book, but in the exact same book says that Hunter is 3 days away from turning 15. Which not only, this says a couple things. First up, this says that this kid was dumb before he took a crowbar to the forehead. This also says that he fought off whatever's trying to take him out of the phase while actively brain damaged. And didn't just say, yeah, I'll just nope out of here. So I feel like he's supposed to be like 12, because that would make a lot more sense. I feel like what happened is that Grant was like, realized where it was going, and he was like, maybe we shouldn't have 12-year-olds lynch other 12-year-olds. But the whole Hunter Leftwoods thing, that really made me kind of drag my feet on this one. And I think it honestly might be my favorite book in the series, which is a shock because previously it was Lies. And we'll talk more about feelings on Lies when we get there. But no, I love this series. I did just spoil some stuff, but it's mostly minor character stuff. I don't really care that much about the major characters. It's like the minor characters have my whole heart and soul. But no, I do love the series, and it's been so fun rereading it. The next book that I read was probably my least favorite book of the week, and that's Bird Box by Josh Malerman. This is a quick little horror novel. It was like a light little palate cleanser between Gone novels, about this world where suddenly one day it became dangerous to look outside, and nobody really knows what's going on, because if you look outside you go crazy and start killing people. But this follows this woman and her 2 young children. They're both 5 years old, and she decides that she's been living in this house, and she says that it's time she needs to move on. She knows where there's a safe place, and it also kind of goes back in time, where we do see this woman before, when she was pregnant, before she had the children, and as the world kind of slowly descends into this kind of madness. It was okay. It's not something that I'm super invested in. The writing it felt kind of distant somehow. I don't know. I wasn't a super big fan of it. I have another copy in the book also. I will be rereading it at one point. But yeah, it was decent. It wasn't anything that like I said, I got super excited about. The concept was kind of neat. There were some kind of interesting turns of phrases, interesting things that happened. I did like some of the side characters. That was kind of fun. But overall, it was a pretty meh book. I think I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. Oh, and Hunger was a 5 out of 5, if that wasn't clear. Then we read what had previously been my favorite book in the Gone series, which is Lies. It's the tiny one. It's the one with it's the one with the Howdelio. Okay, so let's talk about this. So my number one ship in this, when I was reading this in high school, I was a Howdelio person. So here's the thing. Howard Adelio is a kind of a major minor character in the series. He is he steps up. He's like the most badass character in the series. He's completely human, no special powers. He is just in charge by force of being Adelio. He was a illegal immigrant from Honduras, and he's so great. But anyway, in this book, we've got the council, and the council is, it's Sam, Astrid, Albert, Decca, Howard, John Terrafino, and Adelio. And at one point during this, we've got this massive fire that's happening, and we do see our only moment of real vulnerability that Howard lets anybody really see that doesn't have to do with orc happens with this one. And it's like one scene. But this mixed with the fact that in Plague, Howard was like a little bit concerned about Adelio, that made my little shipper heart go wild. I think that's why I like this book so much. And I did really like it again. Like, here we do see Howard kind of stepping up for a second before he kind of steps back down again. But I don't really know if it was really that much his fault. Because here's the thing with Howard. Like I said, he is really, really good at fitting himself in with somebody who's going to protect him. That's why he's friends with the orc. And we even see that in the first book, in one of his very few point of views in the first book. He thinks about how he's not really actually orc's friend. He's just like there to be protected, and he kind of just says mean things sometimes. But as the series goes on, we do see like Howard is a bright kid. He's clearly fairly intelligent. And this one, he's calling out Ashford constantly, which is great. But he is also the one selling drugs and alcohol to children. And obviously that makes the other council members not really like him, but he's a foil to Albert in that they're both normal, and they're both doing what it takes to survive. They both kind of want power, but really Albert is more capitalism. I think it is this book where Albert is like recreating money, and he starts like tearing up, and I'm like, Albert. But Howard is very much the black market side of things. And I don't know, I just feel like he's constantly maligned on the council, and you see that more in Plague after he kind of steps back again. But I think he's a good member of it. Anyway, the next book that I read was A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I really enjoyed this one. The one thing, by the way, Lies 5 stars. All the Gone books are 5 stars. I don't even really say that. A Deadly Education, I really enjoyed, like I said. The only issue I had with it is that it did really just like throw you in, and you had no idea what was going on right away. It follows this like school for magic users, but the school is incredibly deadly, and like there's a bunch of stuff that keeps trying to come up and eat them, and this follows this girl who is absolutely frustrated with this one kid who's just so good at killing stuff, and he constantly saves her, and she's so mad at him, and it's really fun. It's really funny. I liked the characters, and I liked their interactions. I liked Orion was adorable. He was the one who kept constantly killing stuff. I liked the world. I thought it was very interesting. The one thing, like I said, you really get thrown in there, and you have no idea what's going on, and it takes you a hot second. But overall, I did give it 4.75 out of 5 stars. All right, then we've got Plague, and Plague is again another one that I liked more than Lies, which kind of shocked me. A Plague, this is the one we got the bugs, we got the Sad Under Lefkowitz stuff, we got the Super Death Cough, and we've got a really, really cinematic and like kind of end with Astrid and Orc and Drake out by Coates, and Kane and Brianna teaming up to fight bugs and stuff like that. And also we see Howard's kind of like given up on things. First up, mostly because like Howard and Orc were jailers, and their charge escaped. And really, honestly, what's Howard gonna do about that? He doesn't have any power. There's nothing he can do. And so he kind of knows it's like his time to be useful is kind of up. And so when this rain cloud starts, and he's just kind of looking, and when a girl comes up trying to talk to him, and like she knows he's on the council, he's just kind of like, what? Like there's nothing here. And I'm not ready for fear. I'm not. But I know I do really love this series so much. I'm kind of regretting rereading them now because I'm getting just so sucked into it, and I know that book 5 is going to make me really sad because that's bad for my favorite character, but also book 6, completely unrelated, always makes me bawl my eyes out, and just, yeah, there's that. 5 out of 5 stars again. Then I read a Bret Easton Ellis book, and this is honestly my least favorite Bret Easton Ellis book so far. I've read Glamorama and The Shards. This one I read Less Than Zero, which was his first book. And this one, although it was my least favorite, it wasn't bad by any means. This book follows this kid, Clay, and he's home from college for the summer. No, not for summer, for Christmas break. Yeah, it's Christmas break, and he's really kind of drifting around, and his ex-girlfriend from high school keeps kind of calling him, but this is Bret Easton Ellis, and he's not really into girls. This is a lot more subtle than Glamorama or The Shards were, but there's a very heavy vibe. I was like, yeah, no, this kid just isn't, he's not into that. He just keeps pushing her off and pushing her off and pushing her off. But there's also this one kid who he knows that is been acting really weird, and the thing that I had kind of an issue with this one is that it just takes you so long to get to the goddamn point. Like, at the very least, with Glamorama and The Shards, you knew what was, they were much longer, and you knew what your goal here was. Even in Glamorama, where Victor spends 50 pages just listing off names, you kind of knew what his deal was. You knew he was this idiot who was trying to chase fame, and his dad was disappointed in him. You know Victor from like page 3. This kid, I didn't know this kid, and then when I read this very shortly after reading The Shards, I'm like, oh, this kid is Bret Easton Ellis. That's who this kid is. This is The Shards before The Shards. So it felt very similar to The Shards, except for not as fun. Not as many gory dismemberments as The Shards. There were no gory dismemberments. I will say in its favor, as I'm talking it down a lot, I gave it 4.75 out of 5 stars. It just wasn't perfect. It did still do the thing where I get really close, right? I'm like really, really kind of enraptured and really, really feel just lots of emotions in my chest here at the end. And it does still have a scene that I'm not gonna forget, and like that's pretty impressive for a book that's a third of the size of the other 2 Ellis books that I've read that have made me feel the same way. Like I said, definitely not my favorite, definitely nowhere near my favorite. But I do think it's an essential part if you're trying to figure out this man. I feel like when you're reading Ellis, so much more than reading any other authors, you're just reading them to try and figure out what is up with this man. And one thing that I've noticed as a consistent theme is reality versus unreality, and this one just felt like entirely unreality. There was such a distance here that I didn't feel in The Shards or Glamorama. And it's interesting. There is a movie. I'm a little curious on that. I will probably end up watching it at some point. But I'm not quite sure about Robert Downey Jr. as Julian. But we'll see. But yeah, no, Julian did break my heart. There was that. But yeah, there's that 4.75 out of 5 stars. And then the last one that I read is a manga, and that is the first volume of Given by Natsuki Kizu, and this was so good. Oh my god. So I watched the first episode before I read this on Crunchyroll, and I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this is super good. And then I read this, and I'm just like, so this story is about this kid, and he plays the guitar, and he's in this band. He's not super into it though. And one day he goes up to where he normally takes a nap during lunch, and there's this kid there that's just holding this guitar. And he's just like, what are you doing? This is my napping spot. And the kid's like, they're kind of talking like that, and he's asking about the guitar, so the kid's really like, oh, like, what guitars, can you fix it? Because the strings are broken. And he just goes and he fixes stuff like that, and they end up kind of getting closer, and there's the whole band thing. And the thing is, how this is set up, how this is written, how this is drawn, the art style, all of it has the vibes of something like Haikyuu or something like that, where you got really lots of emotional depth and stuff like that, but it's just going to be emotional depth. It's well written, and it's going to be canon, which is amazing. So rare. Like, I read a lot of Hitoji My Hero. That's not especially well written. This is like Sasuke and Miyano, but better. Very good. I loved it so much. I have book 2 now. It's in my little book haul stack. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good, and I'm very excited to continue reading it and to continue watching the anime. Currently, I am reading Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison. This is a book that I went from Goodreads years and years ago. I'm like a chapter in. I don't have really very many feelings yet, but I believe on the back it said what, like, Holden Caulfield for a new millennium. So, and the first chapter was very voicey, so that seems like it, like that'll. So these are the books I read this past week. That's all for today. I'll talk to you later, and goodbye.